I can no longer trust the donks here to have coffee that doesn't taste like the Ganges River post-bath. So I've just gone and got my own now. All right, let's do this. So UFC Stockholm coming up. Pretty excited about it, right? Anthony Smith on quite a run. Moves up from middleweight to light heavyweight. Defeats Shogun. Defeats Rashad Evans. Defeats Volkan Oezdemir. Stops all three of them. Fights John Jones. Loses, but goes 5 rounds. And then finds himself in this position. On the other hand, you have Alexander Gustafsson, a perennial contender at the very top of this division. His last 3, which is the most relevant, I would say, would be the Blachowicz fight, then the Teixeira fight, which he won both of those, stopped Teixeira, then he fights John Jones again and loses, right? Loses quite badly, much worse than Anthony Smith did. However, that was, if you really think about it, the sort of 6th and 7th round he had faced John Jones, and see how Jones would react to Smith accordingly. So you have both men coming into this space, basically, off of John Jones' losses. Now, we'll get to that in just a second. I don't really believe in MMA predictions. I think most of that is just snake oil salesmen. It's not to say that if you really studied, you couldn't do better than a coin flip. It's to say that that takes an extraordinary amount of work. Sometimes you're just betting against a spread versus sort of up and down who's going to win or lose. So it's more of a sports betting component than understanding who's going to be victorious on that evening. And even then, a lot of that is just luck that you sort of get into. There are so many variables that it becomes very, very difficult unless there are like clearly identifiable weaknesses or if they've fought before. I just don't really believe in them I don't believe in them in most circumstances by most people. It's fun for entertainment. There's nothing wrong with it. But people who are like really invested in them, unless you make money doing that, you're probably not that very good at them. That includes fighters and coaches. They're not all that great at it either. No one's really good at it because it's impossible. So the analysis I'm about to show you, I'm not doing it as a way to predict whether Smith is going to win or whether Gustafsson is going to win, because there's a bunch of questions hanging over both of their heads, but maybe some things to think about where you're like, if you see certain conditions in place, you might think that's good for one fighter. If the other ones are in place, you might think it's good for the other fighter. All right, let's go to the slides here if we can. All right, so here's a bunch of numbers. Some of these you might be able to read, some of these you might not be able to read. I actually was going to put together traditional fight metric numbers, which I have. This is from a guy by the name of Richard Mann. Richard Mann works at Fight Metric. I think he also does occasional pieces for ESPN. He's a great follow on Twitter if you don't. M-A-N-N is his last name. He works for, again, he's a Fight Metric guy. He put this together today. Now, there's some extra math here. Average Pythagorean expectation, grappling Pythagorean expectation, striking Pythagorean expectation. You might remember the Pythagorean theorem, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Don't need to worry about any of that. So ignore some of these numbers and some of these other variables, but pay attention to the red and the blue for simplicity's sake, right? What are we looking at here? So all the way over here, you have, in all cases, blue is Gustafsson, think Sweden, and then Lionheart is red. Think all the blood in his fights, right? So these are the variables in play. Oh, these are the two sort of your well, it's not X and Y axis, but these are the two things being measured. What are we looking at here? Significant strikes per minute, strikes absorbed per minute, striking differential, takedowns per 15 minutes, takedowns, takedowns against, takedowns for 15 minutes. All right, what can that tell us? Look here. I'm going to do this. Zoom. Strikes landed per minute. Gustafsson lands more, right? Let's clear. Strikes absorbed per minute. Smith actually absorbs more strikes than he lands, statistically speaking. That means your striking differential here, you would want everything in this direction. You actually have it going the other way for Smith. Now, that's interesting that he has this kind of component. It just tells you this guy is in dogfights all the time. He has to get hit more to land. This doesn't tell you the quality of the shots, merely this, well, to a degree the quality, but mostly the volume. But even that sort of tells you a lot about what's happening here. Gustafson lands more than he gets hit. That's kind of an important thing to consider. So if you see these kinds of conditions in place, that doesn't mean Smith will lose. He's got a pretty good record, all things considered, especially in his more recent runs, and those things have been in play even there to a degree. All right, so you have takedowns 4, 15 minutes. Gustafson lands about a takedown and a half, a little bit more every 15 minutes. Anthony Smith, about a half a takedown. No such thing as half a takedown, he's just averaging it out. So that's where it comes. And then you have takedowns against, 2.2 he's giving up per 15 minutes, 0.6 he's giving up, right? So he's got much greater efficiency in the striking and takedown department. And last but not least, sub attempts per 15 minutes. This is a highly interesting number. Gustafson, not, like you go back to the Blachowicz fight, not much of a guard passer, but you got Anthony Smith, man, he gets busy off of his back, right? And you've seen that. And submissions off of your back can have a number of different purposes. One, of course, is the submission itself. 2 is to create a scramble. You go back and look at some of the leg locks. I think it was maybe Matt Brown on Johnny Hendricks. It was just forcing Hendricks to push away to create space so Brown could get to his feet, right? That's a common tactic as well. And then last but not least, sub attempts per. Now, the number is slightly higher for Smith, but I would say this is relatively negligible. And the reason why is because if you're in a situation where you're going for a lot of submissions, it can be the case that the person withdraws as a consequence, as I previously indicated. It can also be one where you can expose yourself to particular forms of guard passing, and therefore then you become more vulnerable to certain other kinds of submissions. So that these two are related, to me, is kind of the big lesson there. But what's the overall lesson in looking at these numbers as we do it? First, I don't want to be too dry with the material. The basic point here is look at how efficient Gustafson is as a fighter, right? This is historically a much more efficient kind of thing. He's got a ton of output here. How much you want to say that matters in the end is certainly up for debate. But in the takedowns for, takedowns against, all the different kinds of striking variables that we're measuring here, really kind of efficient. A little bit high on how much he gets hit, but nevertheless, certainly in terms of the efficiency, better than Smith. However, the interesting part about this is their body of work historically. That may not be where they're at today. So as we continue to look through this, one of the things that sort of stands out to me about the numbers as I look through them is reach. You got Gustafson of 76 inches. I want you to keep that in mind. I think Blachowicz was at 78. Gustafson's at 79. Gustafson's 79. You have Blachowicz at 78, so just 1 inch differential, although it was a height differential. You had Teixeira at 76, Smith at 76. So keep that in mind as well. But I wanted to put this up. This is an old slide. Do you guys remember this one, where it was from? This was when Anthony Smith was about to face John Jones. And I said quite plainly, if you go back and watch the video, it's an uphill climb. You know, Jones is probably going to win. But MMA's crazy. You never know. And there are some conditions you can establish. Now, not all of this I would take with it. The checking and the throwing of the leg kicks, not saying it's not valuable, but that was really important for John. It has less applicability to Gustafson. But moving forward on the blitz, we'll talk about in a second, I think that's very much in play. And then finding the clinch in the boxing range, I think that is absolutely in play. Putting combinations together, I think that is absolutely in play. Don't play from open space too long. That's probably also good as well, but not as relevant. Play active guard, but not necessarily from closed. I think that's another good one he could keep. And then use the fence, but don't get used. So these are all things he could use. Again, a couple of these you could remove. Why am I bringing this up, right? Because to me, these are the relevant questions that we have to ask for this fight. Now, as I always say, a standard disclaimer, and that's going to be particularly true in this case where, again, I don't think MMA previews are bad and MMA predictions are bad. I think they're mostly entertainment. I think most people are not really able to know which variables are going to matter. I think that includes fighters. I think that includes experts. And I think that includes analysts. You have to have a strong degree of humility about it. MMA reviews are much better than MMA previews. So instead of saying, here's what's going to happen, or here's what so-and-so needs to do to win, when you have two fighters who are coming to this fight from a very unique position, why don't we just ask, what are the relevant questions here? These are not the only relevant questions. These are not the best questions. These are just my questions, the top line things that I'm most concerned about. I do think that getting a wide variety of perspectives, particularly in this case, is most important, okay? So, what are the most important questions? Here's the one that stands out to me going back and watching Gustafson's most recent fights. When he's the bull or he's the matador, it makes a big difference, a huge difference. So, for example, in the fights with Jon Jones the first time, he was the matador. Coincidentally, that's a fight many people think he won. No, he didn't, but I think we can all agree he performed quite ably. In the fight against Gustafson, where he stopped him with 3 uppercuts and then a hook, right? What was he doing in that fight? He was the matador in that particular case. When he's the bull, I find him to be less effective, at least more recently. Now, to be clear, in cases where he's been this, he has won. To be clear, in cases where he's been this, he has lost. I just think, personally speaking, he's better as a matador than he is a bull of late. So here's a great example of this. He's really good at using open spaces, using whatever strike you deliver him and your forward pressure to exit out. That's one thing he's really good at. Another thing he's really good at is intercepting you in range. Another one he's really good at is feinting to get a reaction and then intercepting you. So there'll be times where he just times the interception with no setup. Then there's other times where he does some setups, gets you to react, then intercepts you, and then keeps moving. We talked about Sage Northcutt being inside the ring for the first time when you're in 90 degrees. Man, you got to have solid footwork to be able to operate in that space, especially if the person in front of you is really good at cutting you off like a Cosmo Alexandre is. Inside the octagon, that's a little bit less true. You can play with much more open spaces all the way around. You have a lot of room to work, right? So as a consequence, he's really good, in my judgment, about sticking and moving. Different kinds of sticks, different kinds of moves. But generally, here's what I'm looking for. Anthony Smith likes to be a bit of a bull, right? He likes to come forward, not super hard charger, but it's something he likes. Pay attention in the fight. Is Gus backing up or is Gus moving forward? He moved forward. He moved backwards in the first Jon Jones fight. He moved forward in the second Jon Jones fight. Look at some of the different reactions. He moved forward in the Blachowicz fight. Now, he won that one, but he got it through takedowns. On the feet, it was Blachowicz was pretty even, and there was times Blachowicz was lighting him up a little bit as well. So I'm going to be paying attention to where Gus has positioned himself. Is he dancing backwards? Is he dancing forwards? That will tell us a lot, and that's going to ask certain things of Anthony Smith that either he is capable or not capable of producing that night in Stockholm. Very interesting question. To me, that's the most important one, how spatially the two interact. Secondly, if he's the bull, will Smith avoid the fence line? I actually think Smith, and I said it before in the previous slide, I think he's great in the clinch. And by the way, Gustafson found himself there a couple times with Blachowicz, as well as with some of the dirty boxing of Teixeira. If they find each other in the clinch, I really like some of the work that Anthony Smith can do. He's got great knees, phenomenal elbows over the top. He's really great on clinch breaks. He's good at timing blitzes off of clinch breaks. He's really good in that space. The only issue is getting along the fence line. That's where both Gustafson is good at defending the takedown, as well as evading, as well as if Smith has his back up against the fence, Gustafson's got a lot of really good trips there. He's got good takedowns along the fence, and not like the typical, change level, get the hands together, pick up and dump, or that kind of a thing. He's got a lot of good, he uses his long frame to control your upper body and then take your lower body out. And as we saw before in the previous slide, takedown defense, not necessarily one of the stronger points to date, although it was really good in the Jon Jones fight. But, different fighters, different moments. You never know how that's going to go. What is he training? What is he prepared for? Maybe Smith, really trained takedown defense and was super on point with it against Jon Jones. Against Gustafson, who knows how they apportioned the training. So it's an interesting question there. 3, if he's the matador, so if he's backing up, will Gus find the right opening? As I said before, he's got all different kinds of ways to intercept attacking opponents. The uppercut was the one that he discovered either through training and watching tape or live in real time in the first round against Teixeira. What he basically found was Teixeira kind of comes in straight lines. He's really good about cutting you off at angles, but he attacks in straight lines, and he had a bit of a shorter reach, so he had to get into a certain space before he could really let go with his hands. Teixeira does his best work with his hands, so that means the kicking just wasn't a big part of what he had to do, which means if he could time it right and use his length the right way, set up with fakes and feints, or just be quicker on the draw, he could do a lot of good work. That's exactly what he did. So he did that in this one, and he did that in the first Jon Jones fight too. Just whenever Jon would move forward and throw a kick, what did he do? Blitz, 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 blitz. He had just the right kind of answer. His team is really good at scouting. They are a very good scout team. I've seen a lot of teams in MMA. Some are good at scouting, some are not. Some are good at in-between round advice, some are not. Some are bad at all of it, some are good at all of it. His team is very, very good at scouting. They know what they're working with. They know what they have to do to win. The question is, will he do it? I guess we're going to see. Number 4, how much will takedowns matter? In the Blachowicz fight, he got taken down over and over again. It's really why he lost. On the feet, you could say maybe Gustafson was winning, but the point being was it was significantly more even there. Blachowicz was marking up his face, but he kept getting taken down, and from there, the best he could do was guard retention. Now, I'm not saying that if the fight gets taken to the floor, the fight's over for Smith. Far from it. His guard is phenomenal, both at creating space, creating scrambles, and at attacking. He's very, very good at it, or he could find the back. By no means does it mean if it goes to the floor that it's somehow up. Here's the Blachowicz fight again. Not at all true. It's just a question of how much will it be on the feet and in what context. How much will it be on the ground? And if it is on the ground, what can we say about the guard of Anthony Smith? Very good. He's a black belt in the gi, just understands grips, understands setups, understands control. Well, can take, as we know, can take a couple of shots to throw one up. Gustafson has lengthy arms, not necessarily that strong of a guard passer. There's some opportunities there for him, some real opportunities there for him. So that makes it interesting as well. If he gets taken down, what's going to happen there? How much will that play a part? I guess we're going to have to see. My hunch is that if Smith is lighting him up, he's going to go for it. He's going to go for it. He likes to strike when he can bop, 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 and then move. He doesn't like it if it's all kind of even, right? And then last, what did the Jon Jones loss do to either fighter? Remember, they're both coming in off of losses to Jon Jones. It's really an interesting moment. On the one hand, you say Gustafson has achieved way more in the division, and I think that's a fair thing to say. He has shown incredible heights and ability. I think that's all fair to say. He has done more as a light heavyweight to date than Anthony Smith. I think that's a totally fair thing to say, no slight to either competitor. But some of the things he's been saying on this show, like, you know, if I'm not beating guys at the top level like Anthony Smith, do I really have it anymore? Questions beginning to doubt, not focusing on the title at all. Some of these you think might be a healthy recalibration. Some of them might be something a little bit more sinister. We don't really know. How much did it take out of him? How much was it just that injury? How much can he bounce back? Here's the point that I'm making. I'm not declaring any of these things to be true or not true, but I'm wondering about it. I'm asking, are they relevant factors? There's only one way to find out when they lock horns, but it's worth considering. On the Smith side, how much did that loss to Jon Jones, how much was it demoralizing? How much did he realize, oh my God, I've got all these gaps? How much did it show other competitors who scout well exactly what to do, exactly what kind of tendencies? I think one of the things that Anthony Smith has benefited from is I think some people wrongly assumed he was not that good, didn't pay a lot of attention, and they paid the price. Now he has put the division on notice, and folks realize, wow, he actually is a pretty tough customer. We might want to pay more attention. With a good scout team, looking at the Oezdemir fight, looking at the Jones fight that went kind of long, there's a lot more footage on him. There's a lot more of modern footage on him. Did the Jon Jones loss enable a strong scout team to get ready for somebody like that? Or did it just show him, you know what, I do belong at this level. I am this good. Fell short against maybe the all-time best in the division, all-time best maybe in the freaking sport, but he held his own, learned a lot about himself, learned a lot about 5-round fights, learned a lot about headlining, learned a lot about championship opportunities. Maybe it takes him to the next level. I don't know the answer. We're only going to find out when they compete, but these are the salient questions in my mind. These are the ones I'm thinking of. Is he a bull? Is he a matador? What's going to happen along the fence line? What's going to happen? Could he find the right opening if he is backing up? Because if he can't, he's getting blitzed on. That's a problem. How much will takedowns matter, which means how much will Smith's guard probably matter? And then on top of that, what is the Jon Jones factor going to do to either of them? That's what I'm thinking about in this particular context. All right, so let's look at those two losses. Now, we've looked, or the win and the loss, excuse me. We've looked at a lot of Anthony Smith footage. I don't need to go over any more of it. We kind of done the whole thing. So I thought, why don't we look at Gustafson footage that has him doing well, and then doing some questions about it. So this is the Blachowicz fight, as you can see, first round right there, right? So that's where we are. So what are we looking at here? What you're going to see Blachowicz try to do is go over the top a lot. Gustafson is kind of good about keeping this one near his rib / face, but this hand kind of floats out in the ether a little bit, which creates, with his long 79-inch reach, a huge opportunity for a guy like that. So let's just sort of watch what happens here. He's going to step in off the half, beat a little bit now. It's kind of timed actually a little bit more identically. But then he comes over the top, boom, right? And you see him kind of step off at an angle. No, yeah, see, rather than pivoting, he kind of just brings his feet together a little bit, which slows down his reset. But you get an idea of what he's looking for here. If we go fast forward just a little bit in the contest, right? Here he is, kind of drops his left, blitzes over the top to catch, throws a hook. Excuse me. Well, it's hard to say exactly what this hand is doing because we don't have a good shot at it, but presumably there's a hook to the body there. I can't quite tell. And then he kind of double ups on the right, misses the second one, hook to the left, and then you're going to see he throws a kick to end the combination there. A little bit late with it. He eventually will use that kick to actually turn Gustafson, which you'll see here in a minute, right? Boom. So there we go. So what are you noticing here? If you can time it right, if you can blitz on him right, if you get the good speed, you can come over the defenses around the top. And by the way, there are ways to counter an overhand right. I mean, it's not some kind of like secret. The question is, can you bring that to life? So here's Gustafson changing levels, faking, right? Sneaking in. There's Blachowicz kind of reaching out, trying to disrupt the rhythm rather than land. And then this time just sort of nakedly comes over the right, finishes a left hook. So he's putting combinations together, following, and then as Gustafson, who's very good at exiting, rather than headhunting, going to the body with the last shot, right? It's hard to catch someone's head when they're moving away, but finishing off with the body, that's a lot easier to do, so he does, right? These are not the prettiest combinations in the world, but they had some effect. Here we go, first round still in play. Let's see what happens. Boom, jab comes in, and you see Blachowicz parry it constantly. One of the things he did in this contest that was really good was he never let Gustafson get off first. His first choice. So there'd be a lot of times where Gustafson would back up, Blachowicz would come into him, and then he would drive into him a little bit, or he would do the opposite. But the point being is, he would, from when they got close enough, he would throw the first punch. Blachowicz a lot of times would circle out, and then they would re-engage. He wouldn't just go on the first clash. It was often the second or third time that they would meet. And in any case, look at that, parries both shots and gets away. Wouldn't let him have it. Wouldn't let him have it. If at any point he felt like he was being struck at too far away, parry, parry, move away, right? 2 down parries. Comes across with a left hook. Now you see he gets intercepted here with a nice left hook from Gustafson, but look at Gustafson's face. He's already been marked up, right? So he's going to throw his own left hook and then right, and he misses, but again, kicking the combination to finish it, going to the body for an opponent who's moving away. So not the best combination, but not the worst one either. A little bit later here, let's see. Both of them trade a jab, and then he gets a left hook for his efforts, boom, and he follows it up with his own right here again, noticing where it's coming from. Look at the left hand, all the way down. It's a tendency he has a little bit to drop that left. He likes to move a little bit, Didn't work out for him, at least initially. Now, here it comes, the blitz. Look, who does this look like? Look like Anthony Smith. Fakes low, comes over the top, drives straight, and then he just sort of clashes with him here and pushes back, boom, and then goes to the body as he exits, and then at that time they actually clinch. Who does that look like? That's exactly what Anthony Smith does. Doesn't mean if you blitz, you can get the same results. If you put me in there and I try and blitz on Alexander Gustafsson, I'm probably going to eat a flying knee, but you have seen other opponents bring some of that success to life. That's the only point that I'm making there. However, what do you notice along the fence line? Whoop, he gets taken down. That's something Anthony Smith also has to watch out for, right? So here we go, second round. Look at this. Comes in, fakes like he's throwing the right, throws a left. Gustafsson kind of angles off, right? Sort of 90 degrees. Pretty impressive, actually. And then eats an elbow. I'm not sure if that was intentional or accidental, but it was a nice little angling out by him. Again, he eats that one. I don't think he was trying to throw an elbow. But the point being is, look at how much better he is, even with that shot being taken, at being a matador. I think he's much better as a matador than a bull, right? Here we are, boom. And by the way, being a matador means you don't ever go forward. It might mean you go forward strategically. So here's a case where he gets off first. Boom. And then Blachowicz gets out of the way. And then kicking him, watch this. What does this kick do? It's going to circle Gustafsson into the fence line. Boop, like that. Now where are they? Right behind the 2 black lines, as always. Of course, he doesn't really do much with it here, and then they kind of just exchange. And then he goes back to the center because he knows what side his bread is buttered on, as we say here, and then gets him down on the ground. Again, how much is that going to be a part of this fight? Hard to say. Last but not least, here's the third round. Same kind of thing you see going before. Boom, trying to jab with him, set it up. Right? Gets out of the way of Gustafsson's response, resets, goes to the body with the left, and then over the top with the right and misses. Gustafsson does the same kind of angle out, switching hips facing this way as opposed to this way, because he's just really good at that kind of a thing, right? And then they reset. And then you see him try it again. Look at him. Whoop, missing. This connects just a little bit. It connects a little bit. But you see him angling out. He's facing, I mean, his hips are facing this way, but he's kind of facing this way. And then watch how he angles out. Whoop, so then he can face this way. It's pretty good. Pretty cool. Nice work by him. Right? He's good at evading pressure for the most part. But there are times where you can catch him. And then you see him like this. He throws the left hook and then lowers the level. This is a nice entry. I don't think he gets the takedown, but off the clinch break, who's good off the clinch break? Anthony Smith is. So you can see some moments where this might be relevant. And again, here he is, trying to catch him on the exit this time because he knows he's going to step out this direction. Pop. By the way, he did a lot of stance switching in this fight, which he did not do in the Teixeira fight. So keep that in mind as well. And then again, kicking to end the combo to the body off an evading opponent. This was a nice shot too, right? Kind of eats the jab on the way in rather than slipping, but shovel punches right up the middle, which was a nice shot too. And again, kicking to finish the combination as well as off an evading opponent. And then here you see, look at this pivot again. Look at that, pivot off the front, turning. It's nice work from Gustafsson. So, what's the lesson there? A couple of things you can exploit if you can do it right, particularly getting over the top of the right hand. But I just think when Gustafsson's moving forward, maybe it's good for his takedowns, which will be potentially a factor. I think he's better as a matador. By the way, and he can win either way. As I mentioned before, he can win either way. He has won either way. Just my personal belief. So here comes Teixeira, right? Now look how close he is. Look at these two black lines, man. Well, these are three, because this is the other two, right? Look at that. So you are in the danger zone, yes? And Gustafsson knows that, so he's got to do a lot of evading. Look at how good he is. Look at his movement, side to side, man. Nice lateral movement here, okay? And Gustafsson knows that Teixeira is going to want to get really close, so he jabs to the body, gets his head off the center line, all right, and then evades, lands his own shot, and moves, sticks and move. Throws a knee here, pushes out of the way, right? Look how close Teixeira is, right? Uses this guy's, like everything is moving in this direction, so he gets out of the way of it and then just runs in that direction, right? Like that, right? Because there's nothing sealing him off. There's nothing sealing him off, so he just goes in that direction. And look at how much space he has. Like, you don't have this in a boxing ring. Look at that, all the way in the middle. So here's another one. Here comes Teixeira, right? They're still inside the black lines here, so they're not in the danger zone. But he parries it, throws a shot, sticks, changes stances, and then moves. A lot of times he'll have his hips facing the direction that he moves. So if he's circling, in this particular case, let's see, counterclockwise, he'll have his hips facing that direction. Not always, but that's a common thing that he does. All right? And here you see Teixeira angling, not coming in straight, angling. And Gustafsson reads it, right? Gustafsson reads it. Look at him, waiting for him to get close. Now here Teixeira comes past the two black lines. That's when you know they're making an offensive maneuver. And what does he do? He puts a hanger up there. We talked about this before. Tyson Fury used it in the Deontay Wilder fight. Puts his hand on this one so that when the guy throws an overhand, whereas he's had a particular vulnerability coming out of the Blachowicz fight, nevertheless, he was able to stop this one. Now, he eats a left, or no, excuse me, he ducks it here. Later on, he'll eat it at left for his efforts. He ducks the left. Now, what's stopping him from running? Nothing. Wide open space. And that's exactly what he does. Look. Whoop. There he goes. Here comes Teixeira again. Once they cross this threshold, that's when it's party time, right? So look at him right here. Comes in, puts the hanger up so he can know when this hand is coming. And he takes a little bit of a shot here as a consequence, ducks, and he eats that left right here just a little bit. But it's not enough to get him cornered. Here's another one. Look at Teixeira coming in. Again, often very laterally. Teixeira's really good at cutting you off at an angle, but he engages all the time in a linear fashion for the final attack, and that's what undoes him a little bit. So here he is, kind of going side to side a little bit. Again, angling off. And look at Gustafson measuring with his hand out, puts his hand out, boom, cracks him with the uppercut. Look, whop, catches him coming in clean because the head is straight there. He can just find if he can time it right, it's just going to be there all day long. Pow, and then ducks the right hand and left hook. And what do you think is going to happen? Again, circle right back to the center. He's so good at this. He can do this all day long, and he does. Almost done here, all right? Puts the hanger up, ducks the left, and comes right back to the center. Over and over again, you're going to see this. Over and over again. Here we go. Here comes Teixeira. Kind of leaning, bobbing side to side here. What does Gustafson use? He uses the old shift. Whomp. Changes stances, and then shifts back into the stance he wants and gets Teixeira fooled. Kind of slows him, stops him in space, and he gets to move on and circle out. Here comes Teixeira. He is looking to get past this, which means if he does, it is party time. So what happens? Gustafson keeping that long arm there so he knows he can A, stop him, put a hanger up, or fire the uppercut, right? There's all kinds of things he can do. In this particular case, he just steps out of the way. Again, same direction. If you notice, he always circles out to this direction. Here comes Teixeira on a takedown, right? Goes for a single, head outside. Hits a nice punch here. By the way, this might be an opportunity for Smith. Smith could go for takedowns knowing he's not going to get it, but it's a form of clinching. As the guy defends to break, you just crack him, right? But look at Gustafson here. Now he's got no bladed stance at all, right? He's facing him straight on. What's he going to do? What's he going to do? Puts his hands up, does the old trick, ducks, and in this case, runs out past the hook. And by the way, do you notice? He never attacks the body, and he never kicks the body. It's all a lot of head hunting with with Teixeira, which enabled him, Gustafson, to scout. Got a good scout team on that side, man. Here we go, almost done here. Boom, here comes that uppercut, and he throws it kind of flush, right? Pop, pop, over the top, misses the last one, but pushes him back. What does that show you? You can spend the majority of the fight backing up, but in certain moments, you can be the aggressor. You saw it with the shift, and then you saw it here as well, sort of knowing what works. And here we are, back to the differentials. So what are you going to see? You're going to see Gustafson as the matador or as the bull? Are you going to see some of these things where Anthony Smith takes a beating, takes more than he lands, and still ends up winning? Are you going to see it on the ground? What kind of work is there going to be? These are the questions, and how do they respond to the John Jones factor for both of them? Highly interesting contest. Can't wait to watch it. UFC Stockholm's main event should be very interesting. That, my friends, is the Monday Morning Analyst.